Hey everybody! In today's video, I'm going to show you the most amazing never-ending card and a couple of tricks for painting some continuity into the images that you're creating with this incredible interactive die. This is the new die from Concord and Ninth. It's so simple. It's just a semicircle and it cuts these pieces out as well as scoring the very important lines that you'll need to make this die work. It's so easy to put together. You know that I can't do 3D. It's not my thing. So when dies come out that make it easy for me to look like I know what I'm doing, I'm super happy. So basically you cut 4 of these. I've cut them out of watercolor paper. And you form 2 circles that are perpendicular to each other. And see this little area that is formed by the 2 different score lines? That is where you put your adhesive. So I am a liquid glue girl. So I will be putting some glue here. And I posted a question on Stamp Junkies this week that I really need an answer to. I need a mental health professional to tell me why I try to throw my shoulder out getting the last bit of glue out of a 6-month-old bottle of glue. Like, why am I so cheap? Just throw the glue away and get a new one. I don't know why I do that. It's not like I'm super duper frugal about all my craft supplies, but I feel so committed to glue and I don't know why. Now I'm using a bit of Post-it tape just to hold the pieces in alignment while I put the glue on, but they actually have a little template that will help you if you feel uncomfortable lining these up, which I don't. I think it's easy, but if you have any hand mobility issues or if you're like me and your brain sees things crooked and you want to make sure that it's precisely lined up, that will really, really help you. So that's it. 4 little areas of glue and you're done. So now that it's dry, I want to show you how amazing this never-ending card is. So you fold that first part open, fold this open. These are neat because they have matching dies. You can put greetings on those little tabs. And then this is the 4th iteration. And then it goes back to the circle, which is a freaking miracle. So my idea with this die, they have this adorable stamp set that coordinates with the die to make it into a never-ending birthday card. But I'm not very good at doing what people want me to do, as you know. So I thought, can I take some images and watercolor them? Because I have to have an excuse to watercolor. And make them continuous through all 4 folds of this amazing card. And I think I pretty much proved that I can. Now, I made some mistakes. I'm not going to lie. You'll see them. I do not have a problem showing you my mistakes. But all in all, this is a super fun way to have some continuity in the design of a watercolored never-ending card. And I feel like I sort of invented that. So there you go. Someone please make me a millionaire. Please, it's time. I'm showing you my typical method of watercoloring flowers. This is one of my favorite images, and I'll have this linked below. It's a big, beautiful painted rose image. But this is the technique that I teach in all my watercolor classes. I pick 1 petal at a time, and I do the same thing. Clear water, then I put my base color down, then I just touch the dark, what would be the dark areas of the petal with the second color, let it bleed out because those little veinings that you get when you're doing wet on wet actually are super organic for flowers. And then I dry my brush and I dab the line where the two colors meet until it's as smooth as I want it. That's it. It's my entire technique. So I'm going to show it to you a couple of times on this flower. And you'll notice that I move from one area to a non-adjacent area. And that's to prevent bleeding because watercolor is attracted by water. So I don't want to paint two petals next to each other. So I move around the flower until I'm done. Now these are Daniel Smith watercolors. You can search the Daniel Smith watercolor split group on Facebook if you would like to purchase Daniel Smith watercolor at a very affordable price. I do this group sort of as, I don't know, a service to the crafty community so that crafters are using artist grade watercolor because it is very important. And we have lots of great tips and techniques with Daniel Smith watercolor in this group. Tons of talented artists in the group. So I'd love it if you join us. Just be sure and answer the 3 questions for the group, or I can't approve you. Now you'll see as I move around this flower, one of the things that is sort of magical about these lovely natural pigment watercolors is look how much brighter the petals that I've just painted are than the dry one that I started with on the right-hand side. This is just a fact of watercolor. It can't be denied. So go very, very bold with your color, bolder than you think you should. And just know that it's going to fade back quite a bit. These look so different, especially now that I'm next to the original dry petal that I painted. You can see the difference in vibrancy in the yellow. And as these other petals dry, they'll fade back a little bit too. So be bold. Be bold in all the things, always. The 2 colors that I'm using for this flower are Indian Yellow, which is one of my favorites. This is from the E split in my split group. Each split has about 25 pigments in it. And then Quinacridone Coral, which I believe is from the C split. It's a beautiful floral color. So making this sort of like a sunrise type rose. I don't know anything about roses except that you need to put a banana in the little hole that you dig when you plant them. It's all my rose knowledge. I just laid it on you right there. So I won't make you watch me paint the whole flower, but it's painted. And the continuity part that I wanted to show you is this. So after I stamped and painted that rose, then I turned to the next fold and I stamped this gorgeous poppy. But as you can see, those 2 semicircles, behind them, you can see the original rose that I painted. So what I'm doing is continuing. I'm also showing you this random piece of my hair. Sorry about that. I am getting it cut tomorrow, so don't worry. But I'm continuing that rose design onto the poppy layer. So it's going to look like the poppy is sitting in front of a rose when the card is folded to this generation. So no matter how I flip this card around, I can keep flipping it and opening it. Every single scene that I do on this card will be continuous. And that makes me so happy. Because the thing about this design is you'll have these 2 semicircles. You'll have a circle. That will be one of the folds. Then you'll have a fold that has those 2 cute little tabs that they have matching dies for if you want to put a sentiment or something on those tabs. But basically, each of the 4 folds of this design are 4 completely different shapes. So unless you have stamps that just match each one of those shapes, you won't have a continuous design unless you do what I'm doing here. And you look at the design that's underneath this particular fold, even though I've already stamped the poppy on top of it, and you continue painting that design onto the layer that has a different design on it. I feel pretty good about that. I really like it. The other thing that I tried to do is between all 4 of the designs, I tried to keep some of the colors common. So I have this green gold for the leaves because almost every single image that I chose has a little bit of foliage. I put yellow and quinacridone coral on most of the layers. I also did a little bit of Pyrrole Scarlet on the poppy, which is very harmonious with the quinacridone coral. And I used a little bit of quinacridone purple down in the deep darks for the poppy as I kind of finished that up. But in general, all 4 of my paintings are using most of the same colors. The only really different color that I used was for the Songbird image, which is phthalo blue green shade. But in the background, because the bird is on top of a layer that also has red flowers, I painted in some red flowers into that scene. And I also painted the leaves green gold and phthalo turquoise, like I've done here in the leaves behind the big sunrise rose. I don't know if that's a real thing. That's what I call it because that's what it looks like. I have the stamp over to the side as a reference because I want to make sure it doesn't have to be precise. I mean, perfection is for serial killers, but I do need to keep the general shape of the rose cohesive as it moves around behind the poppy, just so that it doesn't look weird. So I'm just sort of looking at the stamp image itself. And I probably could have looked at the acetate that has the design printed on it. I wasn't really thinking that far ahead. I was listening to this amazing episode of Swindled, which was about the big fraud around the Monopoly game at McDonald's. Really an incredible story. And that is the P.O. box that you see on my mat. I wrote down the Swindled P.O. box so I could send him a card and tell him thank you for covering that story. I had never heard it before. And apparently, since he covered it on his podcast, which is, I highly recommend this podcast. It's phenomenal. And since his post office box is in Austin, I feel like he's a fellow Austinite. Anyway, he's amazing. But if you listen to his podcast and listen to this episode, you'll be amazed because he was one of the first people to really report on this story. And since then, a lot of big websites picked it up. And apparently there's going to be a movie with Ben Affleck in it about this story. So these are all the things that I learned today while I was watercoloring. It's amazing when you sit down to make a card and you're just listening to your crime podcasts, what all can happen. So, dear concerned citizen who hosts the Swindled podcast, I'm hoping someday you'll be a subscriber to my channel and you'll realize how much I love your podcast. And then I'm going to send you a card this week. So here I'm just finishing up the end of the petals of this rose, just sort of painting around the poppy. I don't have to be too detailed here in the middle because really the focal point on this level is the poppy and not the rose, but I do need to make it look completely continuous with the layer just below it. It's easy to do. One tip is keep it simple with the colors. I really only use 2 colors in this rose. So that helped me paint across the other layer very easily and not have it look like it was two separate paintings. I just love this. I love the way it looks. Makes me happy. So here, if I fold it back, you can see that's the main layer. And then when I fold the other layer, ooh, there's my bird. See how I painted the red? And the red is from the floral image right below it, but it looks like it's part of the bird. And then that looks like it's part of the poppy. So that's how that amazing die works and how you can get a little bit of continuity in between the layers and have each one of them still be a painted no-line watercolor scene. Head over to my blog for more fun stuff from this release, and thanks so much for watching.